In this video, we're going to define what exactly Meteor is, and we're going to look at all the technologies it uses behind the scenes, because Meteor is really nothing more than an awesome collection of tools all designed to work well together. Meteor is the glue that takes all of these tools and makes them work seamlessly together so you can build your apps. Now we're going to start by exploring the official Meteor definition, the definition that the Meteor developers created. It's 2 sentences long, it's boring, and it's filled with buzzwords, but it is going to give us a great starting point to peel back what exactly those sentences mean, what technologies are used behind the scenes, and how do they all fit together to build web apps. We can find the official definition over on meteor.com. I'm going to go to the developers section and we're going to go to that guide page. We will be using other pages on this website extensively throughout the course, such as the documentation page. It is going to be essential to learning and mastering Meteor. For now, though, we're just going to go to the guide and we're going to focus on that first paragraph. It's 2 sentences long. We're going to go sentence by sentence, breaking it down. First up, Meteor is a full-stack JavaScript platform for developing modern web and mobile applications. Right away, we got some buzzwords. We have full-stack JavaScript platform. Full-stack means not only the client or the server, but both. The Meteor platform is running on both the client and the server when you're running your Meteor applications. This lets us keep our data in sync in real time, so as soon as something changes on the server, the client can re-render itself, whether it's a mobile app or a browser, and as soon as the user interacts with the web app, adding a new to-do item or editing a note, we can have that change sent to the server. Now, it's full stack JavaScript. On the client side, obviously the browser uses JavaScript by default. On the server side, it uses Node.js behind the scenes, which you can find at nodejs.org. Now, if you've done any Node development before, you know this is something you have to install on your machine, but Meteor actually bundles all of its dependencies together, which means that you don't need to manually install anything aside from what we installed in the last video. Node, which is JavaScript on the server, comes bundled with Meteor, and we're going to be using this as the server for our apps. Other server examples would be something like Ruby, PHP, or Java. In this case, we're using full stack JavaScript, which means we can have awesome code reusability on both sides of the app. Now, back to the definition, a platform for developing modern web and mobile applications. Meteor's server always runs on Node, but the client side could be a browser app, an Android app, or an iOS app. In this course, we're going to be focusing on the web application side of things. Now, the next sentence has 3 parts. First up, Meteor includes a key set of technologies for building connected client reactive applications. This is the real-time component I was talking about earlier. By using WebSockets, we can have real-time communication, so the server can tell the client something's changed and the client can re-render itself, and the client can say, hey, the user interacted with the app in such and such way, and you should update the data to reflect that. This is 2-way communication, and Meteor has that by default. Next up, a build tool. We're going to learn more about the build tool as we start running our applications. Essentially, this is what creates the server and serves up all of the assets to the client, whether that client is iOS, Android, or a web app. Lastly, and a curated set of packages from Node.js and general JavaScript community. Now, in this case, we're using 2 different services to get those packages. These are third-party libraries that are going to allow us to integrate awesome functionality without having to write the code from scratch. This means that we're going to be able to spend our development time focusing on cool features unique to our application. If we're building a to-do application, for example, writing a login script is not unique to that app. This is a generic thing that a lot of applications do, like a note-taking application or a food ordering application. All of these need a login script. With Meteor, we can easily add on really complex features like login using packages, letting us focus on the specifics of our application. For a to-do app, maybe that means adding scheduling. For a food ordering app, maybe that means restyling the menu to optimize conversions. Either way, our time can be better spent elsewhere, and Meteor lets you do just that. Now, this is done via 2 sources. First up, NPM, which you can find at npmjs.com. If you've used Node, then you're probably familiar with NPM. This is the package manager. There are a ton of awesome server and client-side JavaScript packages here. Things like jQuery, Express, and others all can be downloaded and used in your Meteor app via NPM. We'll talk more about that later. The next website we're going to be using for packages is called Atmosphere. And you can find that by going to atmosphere.js.com. Now, the big difference between the two is that NPM has a lot of general purpose packages. For example, something to format time. This is not a problem unique to Meteor. If you're using Express to build an API server, you're still going to want to format time, and those generic packages can be found on NPM. Atmosphere contains Meteor-specific packages, things that tie directly into Meteor core, updating the application in a major way. For example, if you want to add SCSS support or less support, those are CSS preprocessors, you're going to go to Atmosphere to grab that package, and it's going to make integration dead simple. We'll be using both of these to get our applications up and running. All right, that's the basic definition broken down piece by piece. The only thing we haven't talked about yet is exactly where our data gets stored. This happens via MongoDB, which you can find by going to mongodb.com. MongoDB is the popular NoSQL database. It is the default database used by Meteor, and it really is a fantastic tool with an awesome community behind it. Now, all of these technologies are bundled inside of Meteor, which means that we don't need to manually install MongoDB or start up our own database server. All of this is done when we start our app, which is something we'll be doing really, really soon. To wrap this video up, I've created a quick visualization showing you how all of this technology fits together to create a real-world, real-time web application. Let's go ahead and take a look. Right here, we're going to break down all of the technology we talked about, seeing how it fits together. Now, as I already mentioned, Meteor runs on both the server over here on the left and the client, which in our case is the browser over here on the right. The first thing we have is our server. This is a Node.js server. It obviously runs on the server side of things, and this is what's going to power things like connecting to our MongoDB database, serving up our assets, and all sorts of server-related activities. Next up, we have our client-side JavaScript. This is the JavaScript that runs in the browser. This is going to be responsible for telling the server what to do, fetching data from the server, and responding to those user interactions. Next up, we have our MongoDB database, which lives on the server side. This database is going to communicate with our Node.js server, performing various CRUD operations. CRUD standing for creating, reading, updating, and deleting our data. Next up, we have WebSockets. WebSockets connect our Node server to the client-side JavaScript, creating a real-time data flow. This means that as soon as our Node server says something's changed, the client can react to it, and the client can do the same thing to the server. The client can say, hey, we've added a new note, go ahead and do that action over in the Node server. Next up, something we haven't talked about yet is the actual rendering layer. Now, Meteor comes built in with a rendering tool called Blaze. We're not going to be using Blaze in this course. Instead, we're going to be using the very popular React library. It's created by the folks behind Facebook. It's a fantastic tool that's gained a ton of popularity, and rightfully so. It makes it dead simple and scalable to respond to user interactions and show updated data in real time. Now, aside from Blaze and React, you could build a Meteor app using almost any client-side library. For example, you could use Angular 2 to be the rendering side of your application, but we're going to use React, and we'll explore a ton of React in this course alongside of Meteor. And this is how our application all fits together. Now, obviously, there are some details missing here. We'll be filling those in as we dive deeper into Meteor, but this is the big picture. We have a real-time application. The client and the server are connected live. The client is responsible for rendering the app, and the server is responsible for managing that data. That is it for now. In the next video, we're going to continue getting set up so we can create a very basic Meteor Hello World app. Stay tuned. I will see you then.